And we are back. So, Peanut Gallery, not talking a whole lot just because...
I'm a little bleh still.
Right.
It was a lot better today than it was yesterday.
Oh, God, he was awful yesterday.
I got 12 hours of sleep last night, so I think I'll be okay.
I've been making sure he's taking his vitamin C. Anyway, let's talk about Wrestle Kingdom. Wrestle Kingdom's... the January 4th show at Tokyo Dome... It has been going under a couple of different names when it was a huge event. So, the first Wrestle Kingdom under the name was in 2007. But the show has been running consistently in Tokyo Dome on January 4th since 1992. The first event there was called Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome. Then Fantastic Story in Tokyo Dome. Then Battlefield. Then Battle 1. Then Wrestle World, Tungen Festival a couple of years, Tungen Shadow Chapter 1, and finally, what we know of now as Wrestle Kingdom. In the 90s, the Tokyo Dome show wasn't the big event. There were other events in Tokyo, but that was always they always called it the restart show, because it was at the very beginning of the year, and they literally did it via calendar year. So, in the 90s, since it wasn't so prevalent, there were a couple of other shows that they did over the course of the years in Tokyo Dome. And Antonio Inoki's final show was in August in Tokyo Dome, which actually before was the WrestleMania show, because I believe in August that was the what we know of now as G1.
Right.
And that's when the only championship they had at the time would be changed out.
Right.
The first January 4th Dome shows were broadcasted to fans in the United States on pay-per-view as WCW New Japan Super Show.
Right.
And also, this was the first real pay-per-view, international pay-per-view, shown to an American audience.
Right.
So, and also you had to get up they tried to do it live, but they didn't. After two shows,
right,
they decided to do the show and then send it over to the United States to sell on pay-per-view.
For a later day.
Right.
That day.
It was later that day.
Right.
So it was January 4th, but it was at 7 p.m. your general show, because the numbers were weird because, pay-per-view is weird. Pay-per-view is super weird, but it was a huge hit. People loved it because it was an international show. Right. And, we had great matches over there. Obviously, there was Sting winning the world titles, and Rick Rude getting hurt.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the big shows, was a Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
Where he got the back injury that led him to retire.
Right.
So let's do now, going up to what we know now as Wrestle Kingdom.
Okay.
Wrestle Kingdom, they decided when it actually started to go to Wrestle Kingdom that was going to be the only Tokyo Dome show, just because they needed a WrestleMania to compete under the new banner, because Antonio Inoki was now gone.
Exactly.
So
this is now seen as the end show for the year.
Yes.
After this is the end, and then they
restart. New Year's and New Year's Dash is when they start new rivalries now. But this was the WrestleMania. This is the culmination of everything that's happened up to this point. Right. So Hiroshi Tanahashi holds the record for the most consecutive Wrestle Kingdom main events, with 6 in a row.
Jeez.
From 2011 to 2016 or 2017. Or something like that. It's crazy. That's a lot. From 2008 Wrestle Kingdom up to 2011, TNA wrestlers competed at the New Japan show for 4 consecutive events. Mm-hmm. So they had the first really big one. It was a co-promoted show. It was a dream match between Kurt Angle and Yuji Nagata, who was the megastar at the time, and that was for the IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
Right.
On the undercard, ironically, AJ Styles represented TNA in a 6-man tag team match against Team New Japan that featured a young Prince Devitt or Finn Balor.
Nice.
And that was the first show in 2008. There was Jeff Hardy versus Tetsuya Naito for the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, I believe, at the 2011 show. But this is when Jeff Hardy was at his worst, too.
Right.
And also, speculation is that he was incredibly intoxicated during that show.
Oh, boy.
Luckily, Tetsuya Naito was great even then. Unfortunately, they gave him the Roman Reigns treatment. Maybe we'll do a Tetsuya Naito wrestling lesson at some point in time. Because his career is really interesting. The relationship between the two companies stretched out beyond Wrestle Kingdom. TNA and New Japan would often trade at talent. Obviously, Team 3D won the Tag Team Champions when the British Invasion. Motor City the Machine Guns won the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions at one point.
And then Angle won the NJP, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
Right. Now, this is where they ran into a problem. New Japan pushed these guys to win these big titles and do all this because it was getting a lot of great fanfare for them.
Right.
Unfortunately, TNA did not share that same thing.
Right.
New Japan sent over Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Oh my.
Who at this time still was a megastar. Right. This is 2007-2011. But the TNA put him in the X division.
Right.
This is Hiroshi, and I'm not saying this to go against the X division, but this is, 2007-2011. This is still Hiroshi Tanahashi. This is like putting Kurt Angle in the cruiserweights.
Right.
It's just, and obviously I can go through the Tetsuya or the Kazuchika Okada nonsense.
Oh, God.
But we're not going to do that.
Yes, it was so bad that Kazuchika Okada will never work for an American promotion because he had such a bad experience working in TNA.
And New Japan hated it because they're like, this is our big star, and you are putting him in a mask and calling him.
Right.
It was like a super racist name too. It was horrible. But he was a jobber. He was wrestling on Explosion.
Oh, Jesus.
This is fucking Kazuchika Okada wrestling there.
To sell out a football stadium.
Right. And the thing is that Wrestle Kingdom also featured other American promotions.
Right.
WWE had a good relationship with New Japan back in the early 90s, so they had matches together because that was the big Hulk Hogan and Great Muta match.
This was before Wrestle Kingdom, though.
Yes, this was way before Wrestle Kingdom. This was in 93. And then obviously with Global Force Wrestling, where Jeff Jarrett, so we did talk about this, that he was one of the principal producers for Wrestle Kingdom going to pay-per-view there. So when he said, oh, the show turned out really good, blah, 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 people were like, oh my God, he's taking credit for Wrestle Kingdom. He's not taking credit for Wrestle Kingdom. Give him the credit to get Jim Ross and Matt Stryker to do commentary. He was the one who had the connections to get the pay-per-view in America. Right. So in a way, he did produce Tokyo, Wrestle Kingdom, which I think people really need to give him more credit. He does know this stuff.
Right.
He's been in the business forever. He's third generation. So and then the name Wrestle Kingdom actually was not first in 2007. It was actually a New Japan Pro Wrestling Noah and All Japan Pro Wrestling video game on the PS2 in 2005, and it was produced by Ukes. So Wrestle Kingdom has a lot of different working parts and pieces that now we see as like, I am more excited for Wrestle Kingdom than I am in many cases for WrestleMania.
Right.
It's something that's like, it's going to be a great show.
Right.
And obviously we're going to be talking about Wrestle Kingdom 15 coming up now, and I just thought some cool little background would be important here on this.
Cool.
So when we come back, we're going to be talking about Wrestle Kingdom 15 Night 1.
All right.